Brothers, welcome to my kitchen. Poor lighting, poor sound, 11 o'clock at night, but I wanted to cover this topic. Resilience. When I was on my hunting trip down south this year hunting tahr, I was in alpine country, the sort of country I've never really been in a lot of, and I found something very interesting to me. It was one solitary tree on a craggy rock. No other plant life around it, no earth or anything for it to grow in. And I was wondering, how the hell did this tree get here? It's in the sleet, the snow, the rain, the wind, the elements, freezing cold. How did it even start to grow? And I got to thinking about probably a bird flew over, had something in its gut with a seed in it, came out as a dropping, landed on a rock, and just by sheer luck it ended up in a crack instead of just going down the side of the rock and ending at the bottom of the gully. And it got just enough rain to nurture it in the springtime after surviving maybe the freezing winter. And then maybe other birds had pooed on that rock, landing on it some stage. A bit of dust had fallen there to give enough nutrition, and somehow a wee seedling survived that spring and got through the first season. And maybe at the end of the season, the following winter, it was maybe only that big, and it sustained life from the bit of rain it got and the bit of bird poo and the bit of dust and everything came down, and it grew to be this big, wind-blown, strong tree. It was resilient. Us human beings are also resilient, and we all have different levels. We can't choose the genes that we're born with. We just get basically the cards we're dealt in this life. The hand is our genetic makeup. Some of us would like to have stronger bodies, some of us like to have skinnier bodies, some of us like to have fatter bodies. Hello. But whatever we're dished out with, that's what we get, and that's what we work with. And it's the same with our resilience. Genetically, we can't change that. And we can't change our destiny either, where it takes us. And right now, we're on this pandemic, and our resilience is really being tested. So there's a few things I want to talk about that have helped me through my journey in this life, that have made me resilient when times have gone pear-shaped, gone hard, been challenging, been difficult, been painful. One of the things that's important for me is to always to have a mentor. For some of you, it might be some famous person, or it could be a parent. It's got to be a mentor, someone you look up to, and someone that you could see that survived in difficult situations and got through. My mentor is Colin, and he got cancer when he was 30, and then he got it again when 10 years ago, and then he got it very recently. And this time when he got it, he was stage 4, and he's still surviving. And I look at his endurance and the things that he's got that have kept him going. And one of the things he's got is he's got positivity, and he strives to be positive every day. So to increase your resilience, I would say you need a mentor. Think of someone that you really look up to, and also try to bring positivity in your life. Make it a goal to be positive, because people that are geared negatively all the time live shorter lives. That's science. And they suffer more. But you've got to be proactive at being positive. It's not just some wishy-washy, airy-fairy thing. I'm going to be positive all the time, because that doesn't work. It's weighing up the negative things and the negative things that you know you cannot change in your life, and going, right, I accept that, I can't change it, let's work with what I've got and be positive with that. Instead of constantly looking at the bad things that you can't change. If you're born with one arm, accept it. That's what you've got, and be grateful for the arm you've got on the other side. And if you're born with no arms, then be grateful you've got 2 legs. Be grateful for the things that you do have rather than what you don't have. And that applies to being positive all the time. And that's where practicing gratitude is really important. To be grateful. It's an easy thing to get caught up in poor me, and I haven't got this, or this happened to me, and that happened, and that was unfair, and I didn't deserve that. But that's life. That's a given. It's going to happen. You are going to suffer losses as you go through. And part of being resilient is being positive. Another thing that's important is to try to find somebody in your life that you've loved. Could be a grandparent. I really love my granddad. He was great. He took me fishing. Great memories. And I often think back to that. My grandmother was great too. She looked after me when I was sick. She showed compassion. And it's that I draw from when I'm being compassionate to others. I think of those people in my life that I've got love from. Not everybody has someone. Some people grow up in orphanages with little love. But there'll be something somewhere in your life, or someone you've met that's shown you love. Latch onto that and Feel that, absorb that, and let that go through you, because love is so important. And that's not some airy-fairy hippie thing. That's just a reality. We all need to have love. We need to be able to communicate our feelings and feel like that we are validated and cared for. A lot of people, it's their mother. My mother gave me a lot of love. I was very lucky. I had a very loving mum. Some people, it might have been their father, or it could have been an older sibling, or it could have been an uncle or an auntie. So think about that and draw that into your realm of being. It's really, really important. Humour is so important too. In the face of really bad times, it's good to keep your humour. I visited someone very close to me in a mental institution who was suffering very much, and she said something to me very funny. She was telling me that about how having children is hereditary, and in her really bad state of her psychosis, she said it's hereditary having children. I said, how do you get that? She said, well, if your parents didn't have children, then chances are you won't have children either. And at that moment, with that joke, when I stopped and thought about it, we broke the silence of the unhappiness and the grave situation of her bad mental unwellness, and we laughed at it, and we found something to be lighthearted about. So practice humour, practice being funny. Don't be serious all the time. Think about the things that you can make to bring humour into your life. And if you're feeling like your resilience is getting down low, watch some humour, watch some good comedy. There's nothing more than I like having a good belly laugh, watching a good comedian, and bring it into your life. Have flexibility within yourself, like a mental flexibility. So when you're faced with really, really difficult problems, look inside your toolbox and see what you've got. How can we work this out? What are the things I'm good at? What are the things I'm not going to be so good at? I do this with myself. I know for a fact that my management skills are absolutely terrible, so we're not going to rely on those to get through this hard time. What am I good at? I'm positive. I'll take that out of there. I'm pretty positive most of the time. I've got music. I can use that to lighten the situation up. I've got humour, and I'll take the things out and I'll use those things in my emotional toolbox to get through that hard patch. And they help. They're just little tools, little things I can do. Exercise is really important. Trying to get that little bit of extra sleep, get to bed a bit earlier. All the things in our toolbox, the traits that we've got that have served us well in the past, look at what they are and reuse them again. And you'll find that you feel more confident that you can get through this hard patch because you know you've got these things that you can rely on and use. They also may be people that you know you can fall back on and that you can rely on. It's really important for all of us to have a moral compass. Some people rely on their religion. Some people it's God. Some people it's their spirituality. But there's also people that don't believe in any of that have very strong moral compasses. What did Mark Twain say? You can't go wrong by doing right. You can't go wrong by doing right. Mark Twain. And we know inside ourselves when something doesn't feel right. And for people it's different. Some people have different moral compasses. One man's good's another man's evil. I know from the perspective of my nephew, who's a vegan, that me going out hunting meat is evil and bad to him. Yet I know that the people that I drop the meat off to that can't possibly afford to buy it, and they need to give their children good nutrition, and they know it's good nutrition, they see me as what I'm doing is good. There is no good or bad, but you know in yourself what you feel is good and bad. That's your moral compass. So if you're doing something and you know it's for just your financial gain or your gain in your business, you first of all have to check yourself and say, well, where are my intentions, and will this benefit other people? Is this going to be good, or is it just me I'm trying to take care of? Is it just my emotional needs, or is it my physical needs, or is it my monetary needs? And your moral compass will guide you. And I think some of the best, richest business people in the world that have succeeded the most, like the Donald Trumps of the world and that have owned all these businesses, I think a lot of them are narcissists that actually have stood on a lot of people to get to the top. I'm not judging them. They have to judge themselves and how they feel in themselves, because as I said, one man's good's another man's evil. I was listening to a very, very famous criminal. He was a guy that actually, he was a hitman, and he was in New York. I forget his name. He was part of the mafia there, and he killed 36 people, I believe. And eventually he squealed on the mafia to the government, and that was against his daughter's wishes, and it broke him because he went against what his daughter, his daughter said, how could you do this? You broke the code of ethics. And finally, and he paid the price. The crazy thing about that story was he's still in prison today because the government went, you didn't give us the right information, or you tried to play us both, and they screwed up their deal. So he lost everything because he didn't stick to his moral compass. Even though he had a code which was like just kill somebody, it's business, that to him was acceptable, but he outstepped it, and that's when he paid the price, and he's still in prison. And the worst thing was his daughter. There's a lot more I could add to this conversation about your resilience and the things you find that make you feel you are resilient, and we all have different amounts of it. This is the Bro Check channel, so if you know a brother who's not so resilient, check him out, check on him, and say, hey bro, how are you coping? Because right now there's a lot of suffering with this pandemic. There's people who have lost their jobs, there are people who have lost their partners, there are people who have lost their homes, there are people who have lost their health, there's people of course who have lost their lives, there's people who are sick, there's people that are filled with fear of the whole thing and how it's playing out. There's people that are fearful of the change, they're fearful of the mandates, they're fearful of going to work and how they might be treated. There's a lot of fear, and this is a time to be resilient. So it's just some of the things I've talked about may help. I hope that this has been of some value to you guys, and it's been worth the time that you've taken to listen to me. Check on a brother and go steady. Try and be resilient. Good night.